Focusing on some interesting times at Tottenham, the next big topic we're going to talk about is Antonio Conte. He's taken charge of Spurs. The Italian coach has arrived back in the Premier League to try and get Tottenham back on track. The big question is, how can he do that? What's he going to have to do? We'll dig a bit deeper, but he's signed an 18-month contract with an option to extend it. Andy, I'm going to come straight to you as our resident Tottenham expert. What are the expectations for Antonio Conte at Spurs?
I think that depends who you ask. I am, I don't know, I would say more realistic. Some people might say pessimistic. I think there is a job that Antonio Conte can do that suits him quite well in this. And so I think the first order of business, this is very much an issue of man management. This squad is so unhappy. Unhappy to be at the club, maybe unhappy to be there with their fellow teammates at the club, unhappy with contract situations, unhappy with the style of football that they're playing, unhappy with playing time, you name it. Everybody at that club has the look of just being the most miserable that they have ever been in their entire life. And that's the mood around there right now. And so if you look at the squad of players and the names and what we know these individuals are capable of, it's not a bad squad to come in and take over. It's just in a really bad spot, each person individually and the group collectively. The atmosphere around the club is really, really toxic at the moment. And we saw that play out over the weekend with Nuno getting the abuse that he got off of the fans. I don't think that was directed really at Nuno. I think that was just a culmination of a lot of things for Spurs fans the last couple of years, a lot of missteps, a lot of mistakes by the club, and Nuno just happened to be kind of the face of that, and he bared the brunt of it. And I think it was a little bit unfair for him. He seems like to be a really lovely guy, and he didn't deserve, that kind of unceremonial boot the way that he got it. So Conte comes in, and if he can start quickly, I think a lot of players and a lot of fans will get on board very, very quickly, and that they will see that he can create. He is one of those managers that can almost create that siege mentality, and there's a few of them around. And when they get the right group of players, the personalities that mesh, he finds the buttons to push. What makes Harry Kane tick? What is going to motivate him? What's going to get the best out of Son? What's going to maybe get Dele Alli back to performing again the way that he was early in the season? If he can do some of those things, this team's fortunes and their prospects for the rest of the year change drastically. But more likely than not, they're a 5th or 6th place team come the end of the season. And so it's about the fact that he gets in early, I think, and he gets the extra, 10 or 15 games by sacking Nuno as quickly as they did. You're admitting it was a mistake to hire him, which I think we all kind of knew, because he was 5th or 6th or 7th or 8th or 9th or 10th choice in the summer, and Conte was higher on the list. But it leads me to wonder, if Conte is the right guy now, and why was he not in the summer? Or if he wasn't the right guy in the summer, why is he the right guy? It's another misstep. And it feels like we wasted 10 games into the season to figure out what a lot of people knew in the summer already.
That's true. I've been thinking a lot about why didn't he arrive in the summer. I mean, Fabio Paratici, the managing director at Tottenham, worked with Conte at Juve. He's come out, and Conte's come out and said it just wasn't the right time. He had a lot of energy involved in Inter Milan and wasn't really ready for the project. Make of that what you will, but that partnership worked obviously very, very well at Juventus, and Conte is a serial winner at Juve, Chelsea, Inter Milan, won league titles. And for me, hearing some of the noises, Hugo Lloris was in a press conference recently saying, he's one of the great managers in recent years. The players are excited to learn from him. And the key term for me was he's going to build a proper structure to the team. He's going to bring in a base and kind of an idea maybe they haven't had since Pochettino, I'd argue. It's been short-term fixes and not the right fit with Nuno. But this is really interesting to me. But Nick, Andy alluded to there a little bit, the way that Conte comes in and just can change it overnight almost, it seems. And he's done it in his first season at a lot of clubs and had a very, very quick impact. Is he just the kind of character that Spurs need to kind of kick them out of this malaise that's just engulfing the playing squad? Because off the pitch, the club's in a great situation, but it's just on it, right, with this talented squad of players that they haven't seemed to be motivated for a while now. So in theory, he seems like the right kind of character, doesn't he?
He does, 100%. And I think he's going to find a quick friend in Højbjerg, assuming that they're personalities jive. I think Lloris is maybe one of the most underappreciated players in Premier League history. I think he's very, very, very good. I think he's a good leader for that team. I think the big question here is the same thing it's been for 6 months, is Harry Kane. Because it seems to me that Kane has been one of the mile markers. I don't know what the word you want to use, is one of the consistent forces of what's kept Tottenham together when things have gone not poorly, but things have not gone according to plan. We still have Harry Kane. He's committed to this team. He's Mr. Tottenham, and he hasn't been for a few months. So what is the plan with him moving forward? Dele Alli, I think Andy alluded to the timing, right? I think the timing is great because you give Conte about 2 months to decide whether he's got something he can work with or whether he's going to try and sell him like as hard as possible in January, because this would be 3 straight managers who kind of did the up and down with him. We know that Pochettino loved him. We get that. But even in those instances, there was still something to be desired. So rediscovering form and doing it on a week-to-week basis, which Conte will expect. That said, Conte has also found a way to work with some very difficult characters. He's made Alexis Sanchez become a real player under him. And so, or not a real player under him, excuse me, a real piece of the pie, I guess I would say. So I think he's the right guy for the job. The question becomes, and I know we haven't said his name, but is Daniel Levy going to stay out of the way? And if he is going to be in the picture, is it going to be because he enables Conte to do what he wants to do to bring a winner in? Because Conte has done that. He's brought in veterans. He's brought along young players. He's hard to play against. He doesn't lose. If he doesn't win here, he won't be the problem.
Yeah, that's very true. Andy, I mean, what does he need to do to get Spurs back on track then? Because first and foremost for me is like he's going to go to a 3-5-2 formation, play Harry Kane up top, the sun buzzing around underneath him, just like Diego Costa and Hazard. And there's a very clear formula to the way Conte plays. And there's a lot of Spurs players that actually probably suit that better when you look at the wing-back positions. And as I said, Son and Kane up top as a partnership will work quite well. I mean, does he need to spend in January, though? Because there are reports that he wants already 6 players from Serie A, and him and Paratici are already focusing on which players to bring in. But then Paratici said in his press conference that he was at because Conte's work permit didn't come through in time before the Europa Conference game. He said, no, we like the players we have. We like the squad we have. This is not the time to speak about that. But that's just par for the course, right? Because they're not going to alienate their playing squad before January. But when it comes to it, is the way Conte gets Tottenham back on track, like Nick said, rejuvenate Kane, change the formation, and then add some key pieces in January and beyond.
Yeah, and I think the key pieces need to be in one position. I think it's central defense, and especially if they're going to go to playing 3 center backs the way that Conte's teams have done a lot. Typically when the old adage is, well, if you don't have 2 good center backs, then play 3 of them because it makes you a little bit more solid defensively. I'm not sure that maybe Spurs have 1. Christian Romero, I think, is going to be a very good Premier League player. It's going to take him a little bit of time, I think, to learn the league, but he has shown moments of having, he's got the nastiness to his game. And that's something that they've been missing for a couple years since Toby and Jan were at their very best. They've not had a central defender who could really just take charge of situations and who wanted that responsibility and who wanted to be, hard-nosed and really get in there and work hard in that position. And so I think that's the number one position they need to look at. Playing alongside Eric Dyer or Davinson Sanchez is not going to highlight the strengths of Christian Romero, I don't think. And so, whoever Paratici and Conte agree that should be brought in, they're going to be expensive. And so there's going to be money that has to be made available. And that's my biggest question about what changed from the summer until now, because that was a huge issue, was the funds that were going to be available to go out and make signings. Now, was that just an issue for the summer and there's a windfall of money coming in, or what does Daniel Levy know? And what does Antonio Conte now know after talking to Daniel Levy and Paratici in the summer and again in the fall that has changed? And also along those same lines, what do they know? What has Conte been told about Harry Kane as well? Because we heard so much about, well, Aston Villa and Jack Grealish had an agreement between them. They put a clause in the contract, 100 million, you can go. Has some kind of gentleman's agreement again. I don't think they'd fall for that a second time, but has some sort of agreement been made between the club and Kane that he can go in the summer? Would Conte have been told that? Conte would have wanted to know that, but would the club have wanted to tell him that if he is expected to leave in the summer? Because then Conte might not want to take the job. So there's a lot of moving parts with regards to how this squad is built and what's to come over the next few months, and as we get into the summer as well. And you also have to remember the World Cup's coming up next year as well. So is that a great time for a superstar captain, number 9 striker to be moving 5 months, 4 months before the World Cup? There's so many moving pieces in this situation. And that's part of why they are where they are. There's just so many issues going on at Spurs all at the same time. And what happened on the weekend against United, where nobody looks like they care, nobody showed up, those things happen.
That's true. Kane's a very good point, actually, because it does make you wonder, is it going to entice him and some of the other experienced players at Tottenham to stay and see this project through with Antonio Conte and will, as we said, rejuvenate them? Or, like you said, has Conte been told, Kane's going to City in January, you're going to have £150 million to spend on
He doesn't take
players.
the job if he's told that. He does not take the job.
Well, maybe think about this. Who were Tottenham linked with for such a long time in Lautaro Martinez, right? Does that mean that he's in, he's out? Is Milan Skriniar coming in? I mean, it's very interesting to me because of who Conte is. And my feeling is he didn't take the job in the summer because he wasn't going to be able to buy enough players. That's the kind of guy he is. He wants that power, and he would have entered into that discussion with Tottenham by saying, well, what am I going to be able to buy? And if there was any hemming and hawing, Paratici might have not been able to convince him to come. So if Kane leaves, I guarantee you Conte knows who he wants to go for.
That's true. Yeah, there's been a lot of links with a lot of players in Serie A, from Chiesa, Vlahovic, De Ligt, De Vrij. There's been a lot. So I think Tottenham, like you said, it's a bit short term, but maybe Conte will see this as a project that he can stay at slightly longer than Chelsea and Inter Milan. And the fact that Paratici is there, that he knows really well, is really, really close with, I think this could maybe be both the club and Conte moving in a slightly different direction. Andy, one final question. What direction is that then? Because this, to me, this appointment of Conte does suggest that Tottenham are maybe moving in a different direction from here on out, and they now are one of the big boys that can entice the best managers in the world. Because I think Conte is right up there with Klopp, Guardiola, and Thomas Tuchel on that level. So now, in theory, he should be able to entice players of that level as long as the money's there, right?
If the money's there and they've got some kind of continental football to offer, Tottenham will not have issues getting players to come play for them if they have the money, and especially with Conte. I think the main issue with that is, and you alluded to it, is how long is he going to be there? He is not without fault in him leaving the post at most of his jobs throughout his career. He falls out with people that he works with quite regularly and quite spectacularly. And if anybody is known to fall out with people behind the scenes and the way that he runs things when things aren't done his way, I'm not talking about Antonio Conte, I'm talking about Daniel Levy. You put those two together and who knows what can happen. I think the change that needs to happen, and I'll be very quick with this, I think they need to switch away from what is believed as the club DNA, the beautiful, attacking, entertaining style. I don't think that plays anymore. I don't think that is a successful thing now. You have to be so solid defensively, and that has to turn into your attack. That has to turn into where the goals come from. And I think Conte is probably, as much as I was against the hire in the summer, because it didn't seem the right fit, I think the first 3 months of the season have highlighted that point more than anything to me. And so I am ready to embrace, not boring, but more methodical and more kind of robotic, I guess, kind of Tottenham than we have known in, for a long time, for as long as probably anybody watching this has watched the Premier League. Spurs have been one of the most entertaining teams in the league. I think they need to get away from it a little bit. It's a little bit naive, I think, in 2021.
Yeah, that's true. I was sat at the game against Manchester United, and all around the glistening new stadium, there were the banners saying, "To dare is to do," and the game is about glory, while the fans booed Nuno for making a very defensive substitute. So, yeah, it didn't really match up, but I agree with you, Andy. It needs to be a more pragmatic approach, but if they can get that solid defensive base right, then they obviously have the attacking players there to hurt any team. And just they need some confidence, right? I think after Mourinho and then Nuno, they need someone to breathe life into them. And Antonio Conte can definitely do that. So, yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I also love the way that Andy referenced Jan Vertonghen and Toby Alderweireld on first name terms. So I can picture,
You know who I'm
those
talking
two.
about. It doesn't need to be said. You know.
No, but I just have a mental image of you three hanging out in the back garden in Kansas City, smoking some brisket. Lads,
Yeah.
let's talk through the Champions League runs again. So
I thought he was
love that.
talking about Office characters. I mean, I just thought he was talking about Jan and Toby from The Office, so I'm glad you clarified.
Oh, man. Well, we needed that clarification for that fact alone. Okay, we'll have the latest Tottenham news, reaction analysis, see how Antonio Conte does in his first few games and months in charge. It's going to be really interesting between now and January to see how Spurs do, and then see what Tottenham do in the future. So never a dull moment in North London with Spurs, and it's going to be really intriguing, and we'll keep you updated on Pro Soccer Talk on NBCSports.com.
Hi there, I'm Rebecca Lowe, studio host for NBC's coverage of the Premier League. Don't forget to hit subscribe to watch highlights all season long, and be sure to tune in for Premier League mornings every weekend at 7 a.m. Eastern. And for even more content, head over to Peacock, where we've got live games, original series and a dedicated round-the-clock Premier League channel featuring studio shows, classic matches and much more.